I think Live Oak Lake is a great example. Like you can make any area work, but what do you want to put into that? Are you going to be social media famous? Are you going to bring people in from all these different locations? Are you going to do the marketing work and then sell the idea that you have to bring everything on property, right? You're not going out to eat. You're not going to a go-kart track. You're not doing any of these things because you're buying the vacation at the lake with the kayak and home food, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, is a creative opportunity in itself. You could bring chefs in, you could bring, things to your location to make it a better deal for them. But it's a whole different sell than, hey, I'm in Seattle, right? Come here, stay in my house, and then go out and do what you want because it's Seattle.
Alrighty, welcome back to another edition of the Hideaways Show, Behind the Curtain. Top of the morning to you, Chief. How the heck are you?
I'm doing good, man. It's our early one today. We're not waiting until the afternoon. I love it.
Dude, we got the creative juices flowing here early on in the morning, and I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever, man. You've been kind of the on-site running around guy, traveling the country.
I've just been abandoning everyone. I talked to Martin this morning. He's like, dude, where have you been? How have you? Apparently he got sick and better all the time that I didn't talk to him. And then I had a meeting today with somebody that didn't show up. So I just spent like 30 minutes like touching base on text messages. I haven't answered in a while. So it's been wild.
There's something about a meeting when someone doesn't show up. Now, if it's like a very critical, important meeting, then maybe it's a little bit different.
Say what I think you're going to say.
But if someone doesn't show up, there's like a little part of me that kind of gets excited because I see time back in my day. I'm like, I just added 30 minutes to my day.
To bring this full circle, I told you a few weeks ago that I didn't know what my favorite food was, right? Or favorite pizza or whatever it was. I am not good at favorites, but my favorite thing in the whole entire world is getting unexpected time back because I pack my calendar down to the minute. Like I know getting ready time, I know drive time, I know everything. And when someone doesn't show up, I'm like, look at that. I have a whole hour. I will say the only caveat is this meeting was in a parking lot because I was locked out and I couldn't get into the office. So I love unexpected time, but I want it to be when I'm sitting in front of the computer so I can make it productive.
Yep. So I'm with you there.
Yeah.
So well, cool. Well, let's dive in. I think last week we had a fun. Yeah, it was last week. I was like, wait, was that 2 weeks ago? No, last week we had a fun topic on the 0% interest credit card and the equity for Rockhaven. That was a really fun topic. I think we had good feedback from people who were listening to that. So we'll be doing more of those in the future. But today we're going to do a little bit different. We're going to approach this from, and I think it's relevant for what we're doing and have been doing. And it's the top 5 things that you look for when you're selecting a market for a unique STR. And I put unique in there because I think it's a little bit different when you're looking to either build or acquire something that is unique or will be unique, as opposed to just acquiring a standard basic, STR that you intend to just jam pack full of amenities and neon lights. Would you agree?
I agree with that.
Yeah. So the first thing, and I think this it's consistent across the board for unique or non-unique, but there is a little bit more with it from the unique side, and that's regulations and restrictions. I know we've ran into hiccups and challenges and unexpected things with that, so I don't think you can know all the ins and outs right out the gates, but that is definitely something to consider if you're trying to do anything unique or anything that's a little bit more outside the box, right?
I agree. I think that regulations and restrictions play on both sides though, right? So if you get into a market that's crazy regulated, and to me, like Nashville comes to mind. There's a million of them, but I think Nashville's the one that I was looking at because I wanted to buy in Nashville. But in order to do it, and this is probably 5 years ago, in order to do that, I had to first buy the property, then apply for the permit. And then after I applied for the permit, I had to put a sign in the front yard that said, I'm making this a short-term rental. And if anybody complained, right, there's a phone number for them to call. If anybody reported that they didn't want it there, any of the neighbors, then I was not allowed to get the permit. And I was like, that's insanely risky, right? So now I have a mortgage in a house that I'm basing on short-term rental pro forma, and it's potentially never going to actually launch because I wouldn't get the permit. The positive side of that, in my mind, is if we get the house with an existing permit, and those are the rules, it prevents a lot of competition from coming in because it's so hard to get the permit. So I think it plays on both sides depending on what the deal is.
Right. Yeah. And I think, I don't know if this is necessarily under regulation. I should have said regulations, restrictions, and funding is going to sometimes get money or a loan for unique properties. You have to be careful with how you go about phrasing that and wording that to people. You know, if you're saying I'm going to build the world's most unique property out of, you know, shipping containers, domes, and whatever built on the side of a cliff anchored by these braces I found on Amazon, you know, most lenders are going to be like, there ain't no way. But I think there's just, you know, trying to be careful on that front for what you say and what you do when it comes to trying to get funding for that, because you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you can't get the money to execute on it, whether that be private money or through a loan, you know, it'll forever remain an idea.
I agree with that.
And there's, you know, obviously understanding the current restrictions and permitting within the areas. If you don't know those, that could eventually come back to bite you, to where if you didn't realize, you know, maybe some septic permit or requirement that you had that requires you to come back in and do something after the fact, you know, that's an unexpected expense you did not plan for.
That's something you've really got to dive deep in. Like, all of this regulation topic is something you've really got to dive deep in before you get in, because that'll bankrupt you faster than just about anything, in my opinion, if all of a sudden you've got to go back out and get that. I know we've been in a situation in the past where we had to essentially upgrade our whole plumbing system, and it was like a $35,000 fix on a property that made $55,000 a year. So it's like, you know, all of a sudden your cash on cash is completely different than what you were expecting.
Yep. They always say those big CapEx items can come back and bite you. And I would assume that kind of qualifies as CapEx, but that also is, you know, something that could have potentially been managed or prevented in the future. So that's why we always like to say is, and I can't sit here and tell you what regulations and permitting and things to look at, because every single market's different, right? Like what happens in the Gorge is night and day different than what happens in Nashville and Scottsdale and Joshua Tree and even Northwest Arkansas, which is a popular area. It's so different everywhere you go. And I know everyone says it, but it's just important to remind you that regulations and restrictions can make or break that deal for you, 100%. Unique or not. So the second thing to look at is tourist demand and growth, but then also infrastructure, right? I still think, you know, if you build a unique property that it itself becomes the destination, that's great. But if you can also do it in a location that has, you know, there's people already coming into that market that you can tap into, but then also the supporting infrastructure of that market. If there's millions of people, you know, traveling to this area and there's one hole in the wall restaurant, you know, that becomes a problem. What other infrastructure things to consider in the area? The infrastructure is kind of outside your control, but it's something to factor in before, you know.
It's a decision-making point for you, I feel like, where it's like, do you want to be in a place that has that? And it's really interesting, because a lot of people that ask us questions about how we decide or if we would invest in a certain market that they're looking at, like, it always is, it depends. Because you can make, I think Live Oak Lake is a great example. Like, you can make any area work, but what do you want to put into that? Are you going to be social media famous? Are you going to bring people in from all these different locations? Are you going to do the marketing work and then sell the idea that you have to bring everything on property, right? You're not going out to eat. You're not going to a go-kart track. You're not doing any of these things because you're buying the vacation at the lake with the kayak and home food. Right. Which is, I think, is a creative opportunity in itself. You could bring chefs in, you could bring, you know, things to your location to make it a better deal for them. But it's a whole different sell than, hey, I'm in Seattle, right? Come here, stay in my house, and then go out and do what you want because it's Seattle. Right. You know, that kind of thing. So it very much is just dependent on what you want to do and what work, like where your skill sets lie in the amount of work that it's going to take. Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly what I was going to say is, you know, I think everyone's grand idea with unique or experiential properties is like, oh, Jordan, I don't need an area that's very popular or Airbnb demand. You know, I'll just bring people in through Instagram and TikTok and email marketing. And I think that's easy to say, way more challenging to execute on, right? And it doesn't happen like that for, I will say, 95 to 99% of the operators. I think there are the exceptions out there that have cracked the code on pre-bookings and everything, but they've done it in a way where they've kind of done some of the legwork up front. They've told the story of how the properties come about, what to expect, things like that, right? To where if you're just like, oh, well, I'll build a unique property in the middle of nowhere, and I'll throw up a couple reels here and there, I'll send an email out, and people are just going to book this thing out. I think unless you are world class at that, don't bank on that.
Yep.
I think if you can tap into both of those, where you're in an area where there's strong tourist demand, there's things to do in the area, you can tap into that pool of people that are already planning to go there. Oh, and by the way, Jordan and Mike have a killer, cool, unique property. I want to go stay there while I'm in the area. That's one traffic source that you're able to leverage and pull from. But then you also, as you begin to ramp up social media and the other marketing efforts, this other traffic funnel starts to slowly come in. I'm not going to say it's just going to become like a wave, but it'll start to come slow, and you'll start to reap the benefits from that over time as you stay consistent and you get better at it. I mean, look at some of our posts when we were originally posting, like where we started to where we are now, right? It is night and day different. Yeah. And it just takes consistency. But once you're able to master both of those, I think it's the best of both worlds, right? You can tap into both of those sources, and for whatever reason, if Instagram decides like, hey, we're going to change from free to a subscription model, you got to pay $50 a month. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but you're still very much at the mercy of these free platforms you're using. I think always reminding you, it's like, just remember Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook and all these places, they're free. And they're free today, and they'll more than likely stay free forever. But what if they change their mind?
Yep.
What if they decide they want to, monetize
one of the things we used to say in the marketing industry is you've got to figure out the motivations of the platform, right? Because you can win on the platform for free by, doing whatever it is that their ultimate goal is. But at the end of the day, like, free, I think, is like an illusion of a word, in my opinion, because nothing is really free. Like, they've got to get paid somewhere in order to be one of the most valuable companies in the world. So if you're helping them achieve that goal, right, whether it's by doing paid advertising or whatever it is that their goal is, right, getting more people to use their platform, having good content, that kind of thing, then you will win with them, because that's ultimately what's going to drive their algorithm.
Yep. No, absolutely. So it's just factor that in. I think you got to be careful with what Airbnb is doing. You got to protect yourself on both sides. I think the best thing you could do is build your business off of the OTA platforms. But if you can leverage both of those while within our current state of short-term rentals, I think it's extremely smart and extremely valuable. So totally. The third point, and this one very relatable for us, especially on even like prior transactions, and a conversation that I had with a friend of mine the other day, and that's the price of land and property, specifically at the point of acquisition. Just a friendly reminder that if you acquire something that is overpriced, it is extremely possible, if at sometimes impossible, to recover from that. And it's so critical and important to understand what the price of land, what the price of properties are in that area, to make sure, based on your numbers and what you're estimating, that it actually works, because I mean,
what we're looking at too, I think people get really excited about this, myself included. I've made this mistake more times than I can count. And sometimes I go into it and I say, hey, don't make this mistake again. And then I do immediately. It's just what I dive right into, because it's so exciting, right? You've done all this research on the area, you find all these things, and you're just bought in. And then all of a sudden you find a lot and you're like, this is great, I can make it work. And you kind of overlook some of the rules that you'd set in place for yourself. And it's really, really, really challenging not to do that. But just in Gorge alone, the land ranges from like 2,000 an acre to 130,000 an acre, right? Exact same amount of dirt, but the price difference is 100x off, right? So it's really challenging to do that. So it takes a lot of due diligence, a lot of research, a lot of putting your numbers together to make sure that it does work, but also the negotiation, right? I think a lot of people, when they get to the point, they're like, okay, I can do it, and they just forego the negotiation. But in reality, if you bring some of those numbers back to the person selling it, it's entirely possible that you'll get a much better deal. And in the long run, it is so, like, the appreciation of real estate is one of the most valuable things, But if you get it at a discount, the appreciation is there on day one. You don't have to wait 5, 6, 7 years to see that come through.
Yep. And that's the mistake I've made. I would say thus far twice on it's the price of acquisition. There's a level of bias that you have to try to overcome, to where I have this all the time, where I'm very confident in my ability, more so confident now than I was before. But, you know, when I was starting out, I was naive, didn't really know what I didn't know. And I was confident on the property I purchased in Texas. I was very confident. I'm like, I can make up for it, right? Like I'm going to buy it at this price. You know, there's not as much friction here. I'm confident this thing will book out. Guess what happened? Didn't book out at the rate I wanted. Thought 0 for 1, right? Acquired a second property, and that one was a little bit different. But again, it was a slightly higher purchase price than I wanted, but I saw the upside of it. And I'm like, I can make up for it. And that property today is cash flowing well. But I look at that amount of extra that I paid, and I'm like, but it could be doing even better, right? And so I guess I've kind of improved slightly as I'm going forward. And I think with all of our properties moving forward now, we're very strict with how we go about things, and have this mindset of, if the numbers don't work, we're gonna say no, we're gonna pause, and we're gonna wait until the numbers work. Because at the end of the day, that if you're over, you know, buying something initially at the point of acquisition, you're going to look at that number, you're going to look at that money, and you're going to kick yourself for months until you get to the point. I mean, even once you get to the point of like, okay, great, like I'm to the point where I should have acquired it at, but then you think it's like, okay, well, that was, I don't know, let's just say 100,000. Well, it took me 5 years to make up that 100,000. Well, it wouldn't have taken 5 years if you would have got it at 100,000 less or whatever. Right out of the get-go.
Well,
right.
And 5 years is not a long time when you're at the beginning saying, oh, it's just 5 years down the road. When you've been grinding at that property for 5 years, like it is, you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But
yeah. And prices aren't created equal across the board, right? I can say we would never buy a piece of land in the gorge for $1 million, right? But I don't know if we'd ever buy a piece of land for $1 million bucks, but I think it's different per market, right? To where, you know, places are renting for different prices. There's a different, you know, guest avatar that's traveling to the gorge versus, you know, luxury places in Florida or California, right? Like to where they may have no issue paying $1,200 a night versus, you know, what we have to deliver on here for $1,200 a night is a lot different. So it's not created equal, but just at the end of the day, make sure when you do acquire, you acquire for the price that you're confident and comfortable with, and don't emotionally say, well, I'll make it up later, or it's fine. It's only this amount of money, because you will regret it.
I agree.
Point number 4, level of competition. I think this one is extremely critical, especially in the unique space. There's 2 different mindsets where you could go into a market where there's nothing unique, and anything that you do that's even just a little bit above average is considered unique, versus if you go into a place like Hocking Hills and you're like, cool, I'm going to build a glamping dome on a deck. And it's like, cool, like you are average in that market, if that, right? You know, and you need to understand the level of competition that you're going up against, because unique becomes a very, you know, volatile, interesting term, where unique in Hocking Hills versus unique in, I don't know, middle of nowhere Tennessee that has no properties. Those are 2 completely different terms in what they mean. You're not going to be able to do something that seems unique to you and your close circle of people in Hocking Hills, because you got the cliffs of Hocking Hills, you got, you know, Box Top, Dunlap. You got, I mean, luxury places that are built into the side of a cave that are making $300,000. Like, it's going to become extremely difficult. So it's just ensuring that you understand and analyze what competition you're going up against and what's your skill set, right? Like, can you build something to the level of Dunlap Hollow and the cliffs of Hocking Hills and Box Hop, right? And if you can, great, go for it. But just understand it's going to take more than it would if there's, you know, you're going into a market where maybe there isn't anything unique, and you could go into that market and become, you know, the first mover there. I think it becomes pretty, I shouldn't say easy, but it becomes less of a hurdle to overcome if you're going into a market that maybe has just, you know, just signs of unique properties starting to pop up, right? And I think the gorge in a way is kind of like that. It might be progressing a little bit further than that now, but
I think it is. I think it's starting to take off. But it was when we got in, it was one of the biggest drivers for me personally deciding there is it was a market that I think had as much potential as all the players around it. Like we're talking about with Hawken Hills, but there's also a huge difference in the level or the quality level in the builds that were there, right? One was world class, world renowned cabins. The other was grandma's house, and grandma passed away and we didn't know what to do with it. Right. And it was like, well, if we can win there easily and we see the same future potential, then why not? So I think that's what we did. Excuse me. Now it's like it's getting all this notoriety here of one of the best places to invest and whatnot for a few years in a row. And it's as that continues, there's some bigger players. And I think what we've done is we've really ridden that wave with our skill sets and our testing and whatnot to get in when it's safe, test everything out, see what wins. And now I'm really excited to challenge some of the biggest players in the world to keep going, right? What can we do? What can we put in? How can we stay on top of the market? But it's just like every business. I laugh a little bit when people say this because they're like, oh, the market's slowing down. I'm like, the market's not slowing down. I'm taking your customers, right? It's very different. And that's the different mentality between people that just have a cabin that they rent versus people that are doing this as a business, where any business, you're going to have to innovate and adapt and adjust as your customers change and the competition changes. And what I'm seeing is record highs in everything that I'm doing. But when I talk to people, they're all saying, a market slowdown. I'm like, that's not the case at all. And it really motivates me to say, okay, let's get rid of our, old properties while they're still doing well, and then triple down on this unique, standout Instagram driven content, right? Or TikTok driven content for bigger numbers there.
Yep. Yeah. No, absolutely. So, I mean, competition is something that you have to factor in, and it's going to be something whether you do unique or not. The level of competition is going to continue to rise in STRs, but any business for that matter. So, understanding that level of competition before getting it is key. And the last point is marketability, and this one might actually surprise you a little bit. So hang with me here as I explain my point behind this. Is if you are going to go and build the most unique cabin, I think the marketability of the market and the location you're building it in plays a role and a factor into that. And the reason I say that is a perfect example. I think it was one I brought to the Would You Book It segment a few weeks back, and that was Outpost X. Did a cool, they have a cool, unique property out in the middle of literally the desert in no man's land, right? And if they had built just a, semi-unique property out there, I just don't think it would have done well. But they built these almost like this Star Wars themed community out in the middle of the desert that without that piece wouldn't have marketed as well. So I think just understanding, how marketability factors into that, because it's gonna change how much you have to really promote and market that property to an audience, whether that be through Airbnb, through direct bookings, versus if you can acquire or build a unique property in an area that helps from a marketing standpoint. It has the views, it has cliffs, it has waterfalls, it has these unique components that plays a role and a factor into it, versus I think 9 times out of 10, if you had taken any investor and gave them that dry, crusted piece of desert land, it wouldn't have worked out, right? Because they would have tried to market it, but it takes a special skill set and a team to be able to execute on that. So
yeah,
I hope that point made sense. It made sense in my head.
It does make sense. I think it does.
Okay. Yeah. And again, we've talked about this before, where they're probably like, Jordan, you are contradicting yourself based on other episodes and what you've said, and like location doesn't matter. And I don't think location doesn't matter. It plays a role based on your skill sets, because our skill sets compared to someone listening to this are completely different, right? And our skill sets today are completely different than they were 2 years ago when we were doing all these things.
And I would say, like, if someone, we actually were talking to somebody a while back about investing in New York, and she's like, I really want to be here because, and it was basically because there's a lot of traffic, because this place is relatively newer in the market and whatever. And we encourage her. It's like, absolutely. If you're not confident in your marketing capabilities and your social media game and all that, then get that place, utilize the traffic that's there, and then continue to hone in on the other skills so you can advance up to that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you can sit down and say, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not, then lean into the things that you're good at, because it's going to be hard no matter what. Right. So you might as well have a little bit of a leg up on the things that are not.
Right. Lean into what you're good at and lean
Yeah.
into a market that can help maybe, cover your ass essentially as you get good at the things you're not good at, right? You're in a market that's already popular that's you're going to fill up your calendar good enough or exactly how you need to generate the cash flow you want while you're building this skill set on the side of how do I market on social media? How do I get really good at writing world-class emails to get repeat guests, things like that, right?
Yep.
It kind of gives you a little bit more of a cushion as you're going through that versus like building a unique property out in the middle of nowhere and you're like, great, I gotta get an Instagram account, I gotta start sending some emails. But then the question becomes, it's like, great, I have an Instagram account with no followers, great, I gotta send an email with no emails, right?
Yep.
Where do you start? And I think most people would be like, they'd almost, I think some people are go-getters would figure out, other people would just kind of sit there and be like,
now what?
Now what do I do? But you guys told me to promote on email and social media. I'm doing it, but no one's watching and no one's listening. So I think that's a key piece is to understand your skill sets, but then also wherever you are investing, what is the marketability of that?
I agree.
So,
it's a good list.
Yeah. So there's other things that factor into it, but I think those are 5 key things that you should consider as you are selecting a market. Every market's different, but it is a different it's a different approach than just buying a normal STR market or an STR that you plan to pump full of amenities in a pickleball court.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, real quick, just want to jump in here and say, if this show has been sparking ideas and helping you level up your short-term rental game, we would be so grateful if you drop us a 5-star review. It helps us and this show reach even more people who want to build wealth through unique, unforgettable stays, just like you. So thanks for being a listener. Now, back to the show. With that being said, I'm actually kind of excited about this because we skipped it last week because we had such an amazing topic last week, but we got to come in and we got to do our Would You Book It segment this week. So we're back with the Would You Book It segment. So for anyone listening, Mike and I pick a cool, fun, unique property, preferably not a school bus, and we go through and we approach it from the guest and host perspective of would you book it? Would you go and stay at that place? But then also we flip it and say, from a host perspective, would you want to host this place for guests? So with that being said, I don't remember who went first last time. So
I'll put the point. You go first.
Okay, cool. Look at that.
Yes.
There's something to be said about being able to make decisions quickly, right?
Yeah, there we go.
I also never order coffee or food the same way because there's a little voice in the back of my head that says, if you can't make a quick decision on the food or coffee you're going to drink, how can you make a important quick decision on your business? I think you said something along the lines like that to me, and it's like every time I go through the line now, I'm just like, this.
Yep.
Make the decision. So
that's from Cody Sanchez.
Is it?
Yep.
That's amazing. So, all right, let me share my screen. Let me move this over here. All right. You may have seen this place. You may not have. I'm also going to make sure I don't hit the button that.
Is it ours, Jordan? Did you do ours?
I almost considered it.
Would you book it? This is my cabin. I'd like you to book it.
No, I did pick a place though that is very cool and unique, and I got to be careful where I click because last time I was going through the website, it took me somewhere I didn't want to go. Not in a bad way. I just want to leave with that, but I couldn't get back to the page I was on. So with that, this is called the A by the Lake.
Wow, I've never seen it.
And it is a bunch of tiny little A-frames all stacked up in a line with a central communal area down here at the bottom. Right on the lake. I think they do a lot of like small weddings. It is obviously not in America because unless you are well-versed in whatever language this is, that is not.
Really interesting the way that they set it up.
Yeah. I think this image right here is such a cool photo, right? Where they set them up, they just kind of staggered them.
Yeah.
But there's a central spot right up the middle that you can walk. It's really cool.
Yeah. This is interesting. Is the lighting, I think, is what really like just makes that pop. I think we've seen that a couple of times.
Yeah. And then this little central area with the all glass windows, I think is really cool.
Yeah.
I thought there was more.
They're really leaning into like catering and groups and weddings. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Right.
So when I first saw it, I was like, they're just really close to each other, and that's one of the complaints that I have about my own stuff is some of the things are just too close. And I was like, I wish I just had more space. I wish they couldn't see one from the other. Even people that come together, right, to have them kind of walk back to their cabin and have the privacy of their own place, I think it works to their benefit. But looking at their Instagram, everything that they're putting on here is group parties and weddings. And
I looked at their Instagram. Actually,
yes,
that's how I found
down the bottom. Yeah. But if you look at that, it makes a whole lot more sense, right? So if you've got a wedding party and you want everybody to stay there, that's a perfect setup for that.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're leaning into.
Yeah. So I would say yes. I was a little reluctant just because of the arrangement of it. I think it's beautiful and I think it's awesome. I would just have them more spread out. But that being said, with what they're actually going after their target market, absolutely, this is gorgeous.
Yeah, and I think it does a good job of, because I don't know how big their lot is, right? Maybe their lot is only, over to this grass line here, right? And now they've maximized their rentable space there, and maybe they can combat any of the guest complaints of letting people know up front, like, hey, if you book this place, like there are other places here, you still have your own privacy, right? I think they did a good job of like where it kind of staggers where you still have your own private deck that's offset. Sure, you could be sitting out on the deck and,
hear the neighbor.
Jane and Phil could be walking up the middle here, after a night and go to their cabin. They walk right by you. So I think they've done a good job of maximizing it. So with that being said, from a guest perspective, would you book it? Would you visit?
Yeah. For something like that. If it was like a group event or a wedding that I knew everybody else that was there, absolutely.
Yep.
So
what about
and then
host
from a host as well, for that purpose, absolutely.
Yep.
I could see that doing really well for that.
Yep. I agree. I think the guest perspective for me as well, like I would also book it just for like, myself. I would agree. I would like more space, but I think just the setup is very cool, unique. I just like the overall look and feel of it, and it looks like it's in a cool area. But also it'd be really cool if you got, 4 or 6 groups of your closest friends and be like, hey, found this really cool place. We can book, we can hang out, we can all have our own private space, but then we can all come together at the end of the night and we have a central area we can all hang out, right? I think that would be really cool. And then from a host perspective, for me, it's, when I saw this, I was like, I was very fascinated by the concept of like, I like how they're all stacked like this and how it looks. If I was promoting it from a wedding perspective, yes. If I was promoting it from like hideaway like stays, I would do a similar concept, but I would put the A-frames kind of a little bit more spread out to really lean into the privacy aspect.
100%.
So I would agree. I would also host this place. Just because I think it's, again, we've always said A-frames, while at times inefficient to decorate and, eating up space, I think they pop from this view with the lighting and the pointed roofs. I think they just they market really well, and they catch your eye when you're scrolling through. So
I agree,
but
I love it.
Cool.
Good find.
A by the lake. There we go.
Yeah, the stuff in other countries too. I think that's the best place to take ideas from, because you could set that up in the United States and nobody would ever know that it existed elsewhere. Right. So.
There's a lot of cool places in Canada. I've seen a couple. I have to pull them up for future episodes. They do the Nordic spas really well. Yeah. That was actually where I got the idea of possibly doing one at one of our places down here. But there's some cabins out there that are like, they're in the middle of nowhere. And even when it snows, it's like, oh, like I want to go there while it snows. Like that is a magical winter wonderland to go there. Yeah.
I mean, you have to be careful stealing from Canada, because when it's the 51st state, it'll be a little bit more competitive. It's like I'm just kidding. Not going down there. Anywho, I've got a Would You Book It segment here. So, Jordan, it took me a minute to find this, and by a minute I mean slightly less.
Literally a minute.
Yeah. But this treehouse in Texas, of all places, I saw it and I was like, this is like, it's not what we set up in terms of, the finishes and all that, but I think it's got like its own charms, right? 5 stars, 322 reviews. Yeah, I think it's great. It is small, 2-bed, 1-bath. And it's made out of shipping containers, but called a treehouse. That being said, I was like, I really do like the way that they put it together. It's just got, it's like really its own charm, right? And then this photo is what sold me.
That shot is cool.
Yeah, I was like, this is rad. But also to have a treehouse in the middle of Texas, I think it's kind of an oxymoron, if you will, at least in the
Did
way that I saw it.
did they flip the
But
containers
they
up
they
for some
did,
of them, and then
yeah. And then this one sideways. Isn't that rad?
that
I've
is
never seen
cool.
one done that way. There you
What's in the
go.
ones that are vertical? I'm
An
curious.
elevator. No, I'm just kidding. I
Is
don't
it
know what it is. Um, let's see. Oh, some of this. That's cool. I think
okay?
it's literally the rooms. I think they cut
That's
the
what I'm
walls out on
wondering.
the inside. Yeah, that's cool.
It's always interesting to me. Like this place does obviously well. It's
Yeah,
unique. That's cool.
yeah,
Um, but then like I was looking at some of the photos. Like
yeah. All the
no
ones down
offense.
here,
Yeah,
they're
no
really,
offense.
really leaning into
Oh,
nature. Yeah,
are those pigs?
yeah. I think some pigs down at the bottom.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, raccoons. And they're really leaning into the Texas nature vibe for sure.
But like it's like Joanne got her phone out and snapped a
Hmm.
grainy Android photo, and like it's crazy to me that like I guess you can't throw the term out that like iPhone photos or Android photos are going to ruin your listing, because apparently not. You know, this place
Yep.
has 332 5-star. That's another thing. There may be a few in there that are not 5 stars, but if she
Yeah.
does have 5 stars across the board, that's
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was really good.
Like
So they're doing something right for sure.
what's the pricing on it? I'm
Let's
curious.
see. So if we go 4 nights, 1632, it's what, 400 a night? It is 408, 408 a night all in.
Wow.
Yeah. Not
Okay.
as terrible as I thought.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was going to be like, you know, they were going to have it priced at like, okay, so it's basically
Still four. Yeah.
400-ish a night. I thought that it was going to be like $150. I'm like, okay, I can see why people. But no, good for them. That's cool.
I'm pretty sure they have just flat pricing around 400 a night.
I'm sure
So,
they do.
yeah. But
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
for
would you book it?
if it was just you and me, yeah, probably. Like
Yeah.
if we were just like traveling out there, I probably would. I don't think I could convince my wife to book that place. Like I think she would be like, "Oh, that's cool," but she would also be like, "It's cool, and it's so cool. It's only cool to look at. I'm not going to go stay there," type of
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not her style. Like
Yeah.
it is cool, but I don't think I could.
The more industrial type.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would though. If you're wife aside, sorry, Allie, love you. I would book it.
Cool. Yeah.
So
Same. Same.
and then from a host perspective, I think I would host it. I would want to understand from the, you know, I don't know what challenges or issues they face with, you know, the vertical shipping containers, but outside of that, I think I would
Yeah.
want to host it, because I think we could lean into. I think we would be able to do more with it, from a marketing perspective. But then also,
Yep.
I think there were like the one side, it was just like very much like exposed shipping containers. I think we could have
Mhm.
a little bit of fun with that and do a little bit
Yeah.
more. So
Yeah.
I
agree.
would host it.
Yeah. I agree. I'm in the same boat. I would definitely book it. I don't think Cora would want to go there. Same as you. More so because she doesn't really have an interest in Texas. She'd rather go north. So,
Mhm.
but I could totally see this as being like a, a work retreat, going to get
Yep.
some stuff done or disconnect or whatever.
Yep.
Definitely do that. I would for sure host it. I think the things that you said about the infrastructure that's around, like looking at this photo, this aerial shot that was out there, like what else is there?
Right.
Where it went.
Right. Like it's cool, unique, but is it unique enough to just go stay there and
Yeah.
stay there for 4 days and not go
Yes.
anywhere else? Right.
If
I
it's
don't,
like 15 minutes to Austin and I had a conference in Austin, like by all means,
Right.
let's go out there, use this as the home base, drive into the city, whatever.
Mhm.
But if it's 4 hours from anything and the only thing we got is a rundown grocery store, like I would need a bigger driver to be there.
Yep, I agree.
So-
I think one of the other reasons why this place has probably done fairly well, if you go back to the homepage on their listing there, it says they were featured in Container Architecture, May 2023. I don't know how big of a it's up above.
Oh,
Um,
they've
right
got
below.
that featured in. Yeah.
Yeah. So again,
Yeah.
I don't know if that plays a major role, but I do know if you get featured in the right articles and those magazines or articles have a good audience, they are typically loyal followers and will book. But
Yeah.
I also don't know what container architecture is. So
The Air Castle is what it's called. Very interesting. They don't have very good SEO for container architecture either.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So, and again, maybe it's the uniqueness, and maybe someone stayed there and promoted it and it did well. So it's, or I mean, it's listed there too. So
Yeah, they've got a couple places. With one listing, I'm kind of surprised.
mm-hmm.
Typically, you see people that are pushing to get featured and stuff like this have quite a few. This is good.
It is. I'm curious to know someone that built this. Oh, that shot was cool. The
There.
the spirals. Nope, go up a few more. That one right there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a cool shot.
That's probably one of those containers right there.
Yeah, probably. But it's interesting where they built one and it's probably done tremendously well for them. I'm always like fascinated of like, well, why didn't you? One did well.
Yeah.
Why not do 2 or 3 or 4
Yeah.
or add more? And again, everyone's goals and motives are different because maybe they just had this cool piece of land. They wanted to build this one thing and they're like, we just want one, it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah. I don't know.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
So
Anyhow.
very, very different from the A on the lake, but both unique in their own way. So
I agree.
But
I love it. I love this segment.
oh yeah, it's always fun. It's always interesting what we'll bring. Who knows? Maybe we'll spice it up for future episodes. I got one in the back of my mind that I might bring that'll turn some heads, but we'll leave that for another day. But
all right.
So, well, buddy, I know we got a lot of stuff going on, so we're gonna wrap this thing up. Again, another amazing episode of the Hideaway Show Behind the Curtain. I'm Jordan Holmes. He's Mike Sebastian. Until next time, take care, everyone.